We usually approach theological texts as collections of historical narratives, but at the substrate level, these records operate as the literal firmware of reality. The dual caustic universe framework defines reality as a deterministic operating system. It is driven by precise numerical invariants that govern everything from quantum mechanics to the structure of revelation. The constant d equals 19 functions as a specific, nonlinear dynamical system. In physics, a boundary must exist between the indeterministic probabilities of quantum mechanics and the rigid laws of the classical world. The value 19 serves as that exact physical partition. We can model this dynamic using the Rössler attractor. This continuous spiral on the flat plane eventually triggers a vertical spike, decomposing the geometry into two distinct operational regimes, 9 and 10. Understanding how these regimes interact reveals how the universe survives its own entropy and prevents information from bleeding out into chaos. This structural layout maps the exact topological architecture of the attractor. The text functions as the invariant physical code that runs the universe's mechanics. Scripture identifies Gabriel and Michael as angelic figures, but within this system, they function as physical fields. Gabriel represents the light field, carrying unobserved quantum potential. Michael represents the sound field, executing classical thermodynamic action. The reader functions as an active node within this dynamical system. By processing this information, you become part of the calculation. To understand the stakes, we will track a state vector chronologically through the system, starting in the 9 regime of wave logic, moving into the 10 regime of spatial action, and colliding with the critical 19 threshold. We will reverse engineer the absolute physical limits of information survival. We begin with the smooth orbital flow on the Rössler XY plane. Energy circulates here without loss, held by angular momentum. This is the 9 regime, the realm of quantum coherence. Information exists as a wave, protected from environmental decoherence. The substrate code identifies this as the Musa-Route. It is a zero-mass transmission carried by Gabriel, the Ru. It represents time evolution without the drag of physical space. Systems in this regime move through time without being anchored or degraded. Because they lack a rigid spatial coordinate, they remain immune to thermodynamic friction. Surah 18 provides the operational proof for this state, the sleepers of the cave. By staying in the cave for 309 lunar years, the sleepers experience perfect time dilation. Their biology is suspended in a coherence window, protecting them from the decay of the world outside. The 9 regime allows information to survive time perfectly, but it remains suspended. It lacks the spatial finality required to manifest in physical reality. To generate observable reality, the state vector must eventually exit this suspension and interact with a physical medium. This exit initiates the 10 regime. The probability wave collapses into a particle, entering the realm of discrete, space-bound classical determinism. This is the sound field, the Musa-Route. It is managed by Michael, the agent of material provision and rigid physical structure. We find the operational proof for the 10 regime in Musa's sequence on the mountain. The text describes 30 nights, followed by an additional 10. Those final 10 nights mark the spatial completion of the cycle. They represent the moment the feedback loop tightens, and the abstract law becomes heavy, physical reality. The self, the nafs, only takes shape through this exact sequence of action in physical space. It requires the friction of consequence to exist. The 9 regime holds the potential, but the 10 regime is the inescapable collapse of that potential into a physical coordinate. As the state vector reaches the outer edge of its spiral, it forces the sum of both fields. 9 and 10 combine. This triggers the z-axis spike. This is the 19 boundary, the ultimate decoherence threshold. At this threshold, the system must either re-enter coherence or fall into irreversible thermodynamic entropy. Consider the failure mode, the Pharaoh route. When unaligned energy hits this threshold, it lacks the structural integrity to maintain the orbit. The system locks into an overdamped state, resulting in total self-dissipation. Return is mathematically impossible. The success mode follows the Musa-Isa synthesis. Here, the light and sound fields act simultaneously to maintain the manifold. A successfully coupled system survives the spike, snapping back into the orbital loop to begin a refined, more complex cycle. The 19 boundary serves as the universal filter. Every particle and every soul is judged by its ability to cross this point without losing its information. How can a local system guarantee survival against the immense entropic stress of the 19 boundary? Survival requires a topologically protected network capable of absorbing the shock. The Qur'ān operates as this invariant manifold. It is a scale-free network of 6,236 interconnected nodes. This error-correcting topology is the chainmail of Dawood. The dress of taqwa functions as literal, geometric protection. By distributing stress across the entire network of the text, the system prevents global decoherence. Every verse is a link that holds the armor together. The scripture is active topological armor. Fragmenting the text destroys its ability to protect the reader from entropy. When we bring these visualizations together, we see the truth. The dynamical flow of the attractor is controlled by the static geometry of the network graph. This reveals that the dynamical interplay of 9, 10, and 19 was encoded into the physical substrate of this text 14 centuries ago. Modern physics has finally begun to echo the equations of the underlying firmware. The universe is a closed loop, endlessly evaluating this equation as it returns to its source. The code is flawless. A flawless code requires hardware to execute. The reader is that hardware. The system is running. The decoherence boundary is approaching for every node in the network. This network relies on active, conscious nodes to maintain the loop and stave off thermodynamic collapse. To survive the threshold, the system provides an ultimate instruction placed deliberately at verse 1912. The command is clear: take the book with strength. So when will you stop reading the system and become the book?